Reality Check with Craig Price.
Oh, right, sorry.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me. Craig, shut up.
Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So it's Reality Check with Craig Price. Today's show, Judy Blake with Cirque Imagination is going to join us. She's going to talk about how she puts together events, because what she does is an offshoot of a Cirque du Soleil kind of situation where she's got aerialists and all kinds of contortionists and flame eaters and all kinds of weird stuff that you would love to see at an event, and then that kind of things that shock you at an event. Like, what the heck is going on over there? I mean, you've all been to an event and it's been kind of bland and kind of boring, and you got the open bar over there, or most of the time it's a cash bar. It's just some guy making some drinks and he's got his bowl full of tips and that's about it. He's got his little bow tie, his little vest on. Real exciting, right? Yeah. What she does is she gets a more circus atmosphere, not necessarily as it chaotic and bizarre, but it's definitely going to be an unusual and quite often elegant experience. So I wanted her to come on the show to talk about how she puts these big events together, because she doesn't do just the little events, though she does, but like myself, I'm a little event guy. I show up, doesn't matter what the situation is, I can fit right into the situation. She's got to have a lot more restrictions involved because she's just got a lot of weird people flying through the air. So I wanted to see what she does to get that going, because the logistics involved is quite unusual. And I think a lot of people who are planning meetings, they often forget about the logistics that go on. They have the idea, they know what they want to do, and then they don't really quite understand what it takes to get it done. That's where you need to get a professional planner, a professional meeting planner, someone who actually knows what they're doing and has done this before, and Judy Blake fits that bill. Just a quick reminder, you can always find us at realitycheckpodcast.com. There you can go to the Facebook page and like us on Facebook. If you like us on Facebook, every Tuesday when the podcasts come out, you can listen to the podcast directly from your feed. You can also subscribe to the iTunes feed, which will allow you to automatically get podcasts every week when they come out. Also, if you have any comments or questions, you can always email me, Craig at speakercraigprice.com. I would love to hear from you guys. Feedback is a plus. If you want to give me email feedback, go right ahead. But if you want to leave comments, you can go directly to the website. Leave comments on the particular episode you want for everyone to comment on. We'd love to hear from you. Well, that's enough blatant advertisement for today. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you Judy Blake. So what do you got planned for them?
Atmosphere.
So you're kind of wandering around?
Exactly. And during cocktails, we're going to have, they'll have a runway because they're having a fashion show as well. And we're going to have two, a male and a female, one who does hula hoop and ribbons and another one who does juggling, just kind of strolling and interacting with characters. And especially if they have a photographer, it's wonderful because it makes for great pictures.
Yeah, because then over there's the CEO, or in this case...
Exactly. And it's something different.
Yeah.
That's why one of my taglines is Journey into Our World of Cirque Entertainment. Because it's just so cool. It's so different. And not to sound elevator-ish, but it's people think you can only see Cirque in an arena, at the race park, under a tent, in Vegas. And what we try to do is say, hey, look, you can have it for your private event. You can have 1 act, 2 acts, 20-minute show, hour show.
Yeah, and I'm here with Judy Blake with Cirque Imagination. And so where do you find your folks? Because it is just like Cirque du Soleil.
Yes. So some of them are former artists of Cirque du Soleil.
Is that how you find them? Is that
actually, they usually find me in many ways. Some of the artists, I have found them. And gotta love Google. You just...
Fire eater.
I'm telling you. There you go.
Contortionist.
There you go.
You got to be careful on some of these, though.
Yes, you sure do. Yes. We only like clean people here.
Yeah, you put in the contortionist and they say, oh, my Lord.
How do they do that?
And you got kids, so they look at the search history going, Mom, what are you
looking at? Oh, my God, my corrupt mother. And, but no, some of them find me because they'll do the same thing. They'll Google Cirque something, and then my company will come up, and then through my website, they will send me their information. And some people, if I'm having just 1 or 2 acts, then I can use them. But if I need something that's choreographed, like a Cirque Between the Courses or a 20-minute show, then I have somebody that I contact out east in Vermont, and she then handles it from that standpoint to make sure that there's the right number of aerial acts versus the right number of ground acts, and things like that. But if it's just 1 or 2 acts or ambiance entertainment, yeah, I've got a list of people that I can call. I have a few people that are local.
Okay.
Which is wonderful, because the goal is to save the cost for the client. I'd rather have a little piece of business with some profit than maybe a huge profit but no business.
Yeah.
And that's just the philosophy. So we really try to be affordable in that way.
I mean, if you can guarantee a big fish every so often, that would be great, but
it's
wonderful. You got to eat every day.
Yeah, you got to eat every day, and you know, tough economy.
So it's really a very small version of Cirque du Soleil.
It is.
It can be bigger, but for most of the time it's smaller.
It is. We do have a public show, but at Cirque du Soleil you're going to see 50 people on stage and a hydraulic stage and water coming out of the ceiling and this one and that one.
Oh, yeah.
That's not us. We're more the lighter side of Cirque. And the beauty of it is that it's more the inexpensive side of Cirque. But also the great thing is we really try to customize. And, there's so much that goes into these events. It's not just like, I'm going to want to have an aerialist doing trapeze out of the ceiling.
Yeah, at the Shriners Lodge, which is only got a 5-foot, 6-foot ceiling.
Exactly.
It's for midgets who are just kind of.
Exactly. And I always try to do site visits, and, which is imperative unless I know I'm going to be in an arena. We have an event, coming up in November in Dallas, and it's at the convention center. I don't need to worry about that ceiling height.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't matter to me, but you can do Cirque in many places. We can do it outside because we have a freestanding rig that doesn't attach to any structure. But when it comes to inside, if you've got 10-foot ceilings, 12-foot ceilings, it may look high to you, but trust me, for an aerialist, it's nothing when they're up there.
If it's 10-foot ceiling, half of that space is taken up by a human body. And that's that's someone short at 5 foot.
Exactly. And most of them, are not that. Exactly.
Well, they're also going to be small and wiry.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially the ladies. They're
like this big. I want to say, do you eat?
Yeah, they're like 18 pounds.
Yeah, they really are.
And they're about 4 foot tall.
Yeah, it's amazing. The contortionists especially. A lot of the contortionists come from Mongolia. Yeah, a lot of them I've seen have come from there.
What is it something?
It's something in the blood, something in the drinking water. I don't know, but they are so talented.
Must be the barbecue.
And so gifted. Must be. There you go. I've never been, so I don't know. But
don't go to a Mark-only barbecue.
No, don't go there.
Well, what it is, Mumbo, if you never had it, it's basically you collect all the food and the ingredients and then have someone else cook it for you.
Oh, I like that.
I don't because I can't cook. So I'm always putting too much garlic in or too much something or something. So when I get it, it's either extra salty because I'm the one that put the salt in. I can't. So it's always like I would much rather just go someplace and say, hey, I would much rather just go to your deal and say, look, I want something that's cool looking and maybe something where there's something swinging in the air. Right. And then you would give me some options instead of me going, here's the person that I want to do it in this 4 foot area and they're going to and do all the stuff for you and then just have you set it up.
But the beauty of it is I have a range of clients. And I have some clients who are so detailed and so specific, they can go on my website and say, I want that person and that person and that person. And I can say, well, I can see if they're available. But I can't guarantee necessarily people because people have their own lives.
You can't get Dave.
I can't get Dave, but I can try to get Dave.
But I can get a trapeze artist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And it's going to be an amazing trapeze artist. And, something else I've learned too is, like when we do ambiance entertainment, and by ambiance, it can be one of two things. It can be during a cocktail reception, like we're doing this Thursday night for someone, and they're having cocktails and they're having a fashion show. But they're going to have a runway. So I have a male and female artist coming out, and one does hula hoop and ribbons and just very charismatic, and I have a juggler who also walks on a ball and just very cool things. Great for pictures, wonderful for pictures. And they'll be just an hour, and that's all. And then I have other people who say, I'm having a 2-hour cocktail reception or 2-hour networking event, and I'm doing this in November, and I'm trying to think, we're doing an aerialist. Because it's going to be at a hotel out in Memorial City. And it's perfect because it's a 2-hour event. The artist goes up for 15 minutes. They do their spins, their drops, their twirls, their poses, and it's so graceful and it's so amazing. And then they come down for 15 minutes. And then they go back up for 15 minutes.
It's like a piano player. They play for a little bit, and then they go have a couple drinks at the bar and come back and play a little bit.
Exactly. But the fact that they're up there, 19, 21, 25 feet in the air, it's extraordinary. Because, my philosophy is most people can't even do a cartwheel.
Yeah, no.
So the fact that you're up there 20 feet in the air, and you then, in the industry we call it the death roll, which really it's not a death roll, but it's you twist yourself way up in the aerial silk fabric, and then you spin all the way down, almost to the bottom of the floor, and the audience is,
yeah, they're waiting for you to splat.
Exactly,
yeah.
And they don't.
It's the NASCAR. It's it's ballet NASCAR. They're there to watch the accident that may or may not happen.
There you go. That's exactly right.
Now, how did you get involved with this particular Cirque imagination?
You know,
I mean, were you at a Cirque du Soleil?
No, I wasn't. In fact, I'd only seen a couple of Cirque du Soleil shows, and I was always fascinated by it.
Oh, they're amazing.
I mean, it's just, when I say extraordinary, it's just so extraordinary. You know, you don't just wake up one day and say, I want to be a Cirque performer. It takes a lot of training and diet and exercise and lifestyle.
Those are three things I don't like. Diet, exercise, and training.
Yeah, I'm with you. So. Gosh, in my next life.
I could be the ringleader going, hey, well, look at that guy.
There you go. But it was, I was doing sales and marketing at the time for a wonderful dessert place called Dessert Gallery. And my boyfriend had previously worked for Cirque du Soleil. And he'd been in the event business, in the event industry, worked for a company out of L.A. for years. And he'd been doing it for 20 plus years. And
they were doing similar Cirque du Soleil events for corporate?
Not necessarily. Some Cirque, but everything.
Okay.
Everything. Cirque being part of it. And he was at a trade show and ran into someone who used to be in a Cirque show. And he says, oh, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm not with Cirque. I started my own company and that kind of thing. So we brought a public show to Houston. And we had 5 shows at the Stafford Center. And it worked out great. And we made a tidy little profit. And we thought, this is really terrific. Let's try to make a go of this. And Cirque Imagination was born. And that's the name of the company. And the reason I came up with that is because whenever I think of something, I think of the different taglines. You know, so I knew we'd have to have a website. So I thought, okay, there's so many different Cirque this, Cirque that, and I liked imagination because when I created the website, it could be imagine their surprise, imagine the possibilities, imagine their excitement, imagine the dollars. And that's what I kept doing because we entertain at galas, fundraisers, corporate events, private events, birthday parties, you name it. So Cirque Imagination was born out of this one public show. So then we did shows in Dallas, Atlanta, then we came back to Houston. Right now I'm more focused on some corporate events that I've been working on. And then we are also working on a public show in South America that I'm going to be working on, which hopefully will launch by the end of the year.
Okay. Well, now, if I'm a corporate client
Sure.
and I want the full Monty, so to speak, that obviously takes more planning than just a meeting planner going, oh, let's find something. Like we were talking about this before we came on, is that I'm a speaker, so all I need to do is show up.
Exactly. And when you do Cirque, there's so much that goes into it. Number one, we already talked about ceiling height. And most people don't think of that because to the average person, if they're 5'2" and they see a 12-foot ceiling, they're like, oh my God, that's so tall. Of course they can do aerial acts. No, we can't. We at least need 19 feet. Or it could be a 19-foot ceiling, but there has to be what we call rigging points. And you would never notice it because most people don't do that. Now every building I go into, I'm looking up in the air and I'm looking at the rigging points.
You got to make sure they can support the weight or the
exactly.
equipment.
And it's 2,000 pounds. That's minimum. Not because, obviously, as we talked about the artists, they weigh all of, 82 pounds.
So only if you have 1,000 artists up there.
Yeah, right.
All wearing 2 pounds apiece.
Yeah, exactly. Which we know that isn't going to happen.
That's more of a mobile.
It's more because they're pulling on it.
Yeah.
And it's that gravity that's pulling them down. Because when they do acts like silks and trapeze and aerial hoop, you're pulling on it. And that gravity, that's why it has to support 2,000 pounds. So not only is it ceiling height, but are there rigging points? Not only is it rigging points, but is there the proper weight of those rigging points? Now, if there isn't, that's okay because we can bring in what we call truss. Everybody's seen truss, they just don't know what it's called. It's like that metal frame that you see.
It's like scaffolding.
Thank you. It's like scaffolding. So what we can always do is we can always bring in truss.
Actually, I think more people would see them with lighting.
Exactly.
Just so they get a mental picture of what
Sure.
it looks like. It's that crisscross structures that look like
Exactly.
erector sets that have the lights on them. Except
Exactly.
in this case, it's going to have wires.
Exactly. And that's
or
in
silk
this
or whatever.
case, in actually what the aerial silk holds on to is what you use in rock climbing, those carabiners.
Okay.
And it hooks right up into that. And if it's too wide, the beam, we use what we call a span set, and we just hook right up. So we can always use trusses. So the ceiling height is key. Also, too, if you're going to incorporate Cirque into your event, we also want to know what else is going on. It's not just like, oh, okay, here come the Cirque artists and hello and goodbye. You want your event to flow.
Yeah, because that's be kind of odd just to have some contortionist walk through.
Yeah, exactly.
For no reason.
For no reason, exactly.
At
and
your sales meeting. It's like.
Exactly. So you want to set the tone. Some people like the artist to be a surprise, so they do not advertise it on their invitations or their sales meeting. Some like to get people intrigued about it, so they'll
use it as a draw.
Exactly. Especially for galas, they'll do that. And so it really just depends on what the program is that the client has. Even if it's an opening sales meeting, like an opening general session, oh my gosh, we can liven it up for the first 15 minutes and you really get your people energized. And that's the goal of it, because you want them to be excited about being there when they've got to sit there for 8 hours in a meeting. If it's something where it's a gala, and we all know how many galas there are in Houston, we try to find out, what is your setup? Is it cocktails first? Is it a sit-down dinner? Is it a buffet dinner? We have a great program called Cirque Between the Courses. It really livens up the event. You sit down, we have Cirque in the round, or it can be up on the stage, and you can have an aerial act.
I'd like to see him swing in and deliver the food.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Just kind of drop.
Actually, the new thing now is aerial bartenders, where they're suspended from the air and they pour the wine or the champagne or something like that.
The only time I've seen that is when they're sitting on that board to get up to get the wine. I mean, they have.
Yeah, no.
Like this.
No. They're hanging from above.
And so they're actually just pouring.
Yes.
Obviously, they can't mix drinks.
No. Mixing drinks would be a little hard, but yes.
That'd be more impressive, though.
Yes, it would be
that'd be cool, though. Just
you never know. Somebody might be doing it down the road.
Cocktails kind of thing. About Tom Cruise throwing bottles up in the air.
That's right.
And catching them and stuff.
Little did you know how prophetic cocktail would be at that time.
You can have that one. You find someone who can do that.
There you go.
But they're like pouring wine from like 10 feet up in the air?
Yeah. They come down. They raise down and then they go up.
Oh,
and
like
then
a spider kind of
yes.
creepy kind of thing. Okay.
It's very cool. It's very, very cool. But when we do things that incorporate into other, parts of the event, it's just, that's why I always try to find out when they say, okay, I'd love to have Cirque. Okay, well, let's talk about your event. I mean, if Cirque works into the event, absolutely, I want to sell it to them. But if it really doesn't work, or it's not going to look good, I'm not going to do it. Because it's not important enough to me to do it just for the sale. It has to work for the event.
Right, because they could pay a reasonable price and and they could be very happy, with how you handle everything.
Right.
And they're all excited about everything.
Exactly.
And if it just doesn't fit, it looks badly on you, even though everything you did was perfect and they loved you.
But it has to be the right venue. A great example is I had a client meeting, found us on the internet. It was great. All the advertising I can do, and then they just do a Cirque search, and there I was. And she said they had done their holiday party last year in a room. And I went to go see it, and I said, it is a great room, but I can tell you now it really won't work for Cirque, even for ground acts. By ground acts, I mean jugglers, contortionists.
The lady with the hula hoops and the ribbon
hula hoops
thing.
and things like that. Because even though the ceiling height was, 10 or 12 feet, they throw those pins up in the air and they throw those balls up in the air and they swing those hoops up in the air. And it just wasn't going to have the dramatic effect that you want. And a lot of times what we do is we put our artists on risers, that are maybe 2 to 3 feet.
Sure.
Just to elevate them from the crowd, to make them stand out and to really get people excited about what we do. This room wasn't even going to work for that. And given that, if it wasn't going to work, I said, I would love to work with you. It would be fabulous, but we need a different room. I'm happy to suggest some rooms to you. And that's something else too. It's knowing your community. It's knowing the area and saying to a client, okay, this is what I do. And if you want to have Cirque, this is great, but it's helping them find the right venue for their event.
But don't you also handle like close-up magic? I saw on your on your website that you can get magicians, you can get this, you can get it. You will work and find the people for them.
Exactly.
So-
And if I can't find them, I know somebody who will.
Yeah, and that's
because there's so many different things that people do. Everybody has a specialty. And if somebody asked me for a hip hop dance group, sure, I could find one. I know where to find one, but that's sort of not my area. But what I do try to do is handle as much of the entertainment for them as possible. We are not limited to just Cirque,
Right.
but that is our specialty.
Well, I want to make sure people know that, if they get in a situation where because like I said, you have to have so many different backups, possibilities, because if you just walk in saying, hey, we're going to have a guy eat fire, and it's like, well, we can't because of certain limitations.
Right.
That's it.
Then I have to come up with something else,
so,
and that's my job to do that.
Right.
And that's where I help them think, okay, how can we make this different? Everyone is used to hearing bands, DJs, keynote speakers, and how can we spice it up? How can we make it different so that more people come to your event or more people remember your event?
Well, that's the key thing, is I think it's not just about having, they think that if they hire one speaker, people will come that year.
Right.
Like, oh, we've got this speaker, and they'll spend a lot of money, like on Bill Clinton, who's the kind of makes huge money.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, yes, he will draw you. But will they come back next year for someone they don't know? Which is why you have to even if you have to have a good speaker like myself. I like to go to the place, and they'll be like, oh, we've never had a keynote speaker like you before, and because I'm kind of sarcastic and I'm fun and
Sure.
I'm funny, but I have a great content, and so I'll do my deal. And what will happen is the next year, they're like, well, we didn't know who this guy was last year, and he was great, so they're going to have another great person this year, even though if I don't know who they are. It's not about necessarily name recognition, but it's more about the brand recognition of the event.
Exactly. And how, what is the reputation of that organization for having interesting speakers
Right.
or fabulous events? And you're right. And that's why we try to get people to think outside the box, because it's something that people will remember. They're so used to just seeing it under tents, in arenas, in Vegas. And when they go and they see this, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this person is at the dinner that I'm at. I mean, we just did the OTC dinner, the Sea of Possibilities at George
Offshore
R. Brown.
Technology Conference, because this goes out more than just
Thank you.
Houston. So.
Sorry about that. I get in my little
That's all
Houston
right.
bubble here.
I'll tell you. I'll explain it to everybody.
There you go. And it was a fabulous dinner, 1,000 people, and we had 2 aerialists, and it was extraordinary. And it was just so fun, and people were like in awe. And I can promise you that being executives and the kind of clientele that were at this event, that most of them had seen Cirque. I can almost promise you they had. But how fabulous was it that they had their own private Cirque performance?
And it was at this technology conference where you wouldn't expect it.
It was at the dinner. It
Yeah.
was at this Sea of Possibilities dinner that was amazing. And it was just so unusual. Something out of the ordinary. And that's the goal, out of the ordinary.
Now, when you start to talk to them about customization, and how do you is it mostly interviews with them? Do you send out like questionnaires to have them? How do you set up the situation where you can get the best information you can? Because sometimes if you ask a couple questions, they don't necessarily know the answer.
They don't. And what I try to do is find out who is my audience. Is my audience mainly adults? Is it mainly men? Is it, are there children there? You know, I'm going to be doing an event, a holiday party in December that's all adults. It's an employee holiday party. I'm doing another one in December that's a family holiday party for the employees and their families. So that's something too. It's who is your audience? Is your company kind of conservative? The women especially, their outfits tend to be sort of skin tight.
Yeah, I've seen Cirque du Soleil. It's mostly half-naked people running around.
Right. Well, some of our outfits are not half-naked, so we try to be
Well,
very
it just looks
careful
like
with
they're
that.
half-naked.
Exactly. Well, they may look like it because it's sort of that beige neutral skin color.
Right.
But they're not.
No, I'm not saying it's a all-girl review.
Exactly. It's kind of like there's one Cirque show that's I can't think of the name of it. It's escaping me, but I actually saw it, and it was more the very racy side of Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah.
And it was topless and everything, and that was Vegas.
Right.
So it worked well for that.
But then there's other Cirque du Soleil, because I've seen the one where they've got the extravagant, I think it was all animals or something, and it was like all these extravagant costumes and things like that.
And that is what they are known for. So some of the questions I make sure I ask is, what are the ages of the people? Is your company more conservative, or is it, more adventurous and more modern, so to speak? We have a group that we're talking to that is a very, very, very conservative religious group. So we would make sure that the women had on more clothing, that their shoulders were covered, that they wore outfits that had long sleeves, that the men wore more loose-fitting things rather than those skin tight or topless things.
Yeah, we don't need to see what religion they are. So we want to make sure that we,
exactly.
cover that stuff up.
Exactly. So those are the kinds of questions that I ask. And the number one factor too, in many cases, besides the venue, is what can you afford? I want to give people the most bang for the buck, and that's what's important. But while I try to be reasonable, I can't give you a 30-minute show for $5,000. It's impossible. I can, especially if I have to fly people in, and depending where your event is at. So
yeah, it's not like you can go to Tomball, which is a suburb, kind of a rural suburb of Houston, where you can just pluck out a contortionist.
Exactly.
Well, maybe in Tomball you can, but I mean,
well,
not a good one.
No. There used to
not a family appropriate one.
Exactly. There you go. Okay, there you
go.
But
you're not going to find a trapeze artist just in Cleveland just by snapping your fingers.
It's very, very hard. There are a few really amazing. I actually have a couple of great aerialists here in Houston. Who are wonderful. I have a great juggler in Houston.
Oh, there's a lot of jugglers. I know. I'm friends with so many jugglers. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. And I have another one who's going to be coming here, and he's just amazing. And so there are a few, but Houston is not the mecca for Cirque artists, so I have to fly people in.
Now, besides Vegas, what would be the mecca of?
Believe it or not, there's a lot out east in Vermont.
Being from New Hampshire, I'm astounded because Vermont is just full of people who eat ice cream and hippies. And
I'm telling you, there is an extraordinary cast of Cirque characters in Vermont. There's some in Seattle.
Now that would be much more
sort of the LA area.
Yeah.
New York, obviously, Orlando.
Oh, see, now that's what I was thinking. Because
if in Dallas,
if you're somewhere where there's a major theme park,
right.
Probably a lot easier to find.
There are, but even in Dallas, but
Dallas has got a couple theme parks.
And there's a great company there too that sometimes I use people from. So, and if they're just looking for a couple of acts, a plane ticket, a hotel room, and they're here, it's not that difficult to do.
But once you get
us, you just have to work out the logistics of it. I try to get people to come in. My goal is the day before. And so that we can check out the venue. Those kinds of things are really important. You never want there to be any surprises the day of the event. The only surprise you want is the one that the audience has when they see your artist come out and perform. That's the only surprise you want. And it takes planning. Some people think I'm anal. I prefer to call myself detail-oriented.
Yeah, it's all perspective.
It makes me sound better. It makes me feel better, and that's what it's about.
As someone who's a negative person, I'm always worried. So that could be considered anal or detail-oriented. But you're worried about, and I have no problem saying that. I get worried about what could go wrong.
Right.
So I do my best to make a checklist of those things because I acknowledge the fact that things are going to go wrong.
Right.
And do my best to eliminate those from actually happening.
Right. But it's being prepared.
Yeah.
It's doing your homework and being prepared, and it's getting to know your client.
Well, in your line of work, someone could get hurt or even killed.
That's exactly right.
That's a little different than, like, for myself. I mean, I'm just going to embarrass myself and possibly the client if I'm not prepared.
But nobody wants to do that. And
right,
you don't
but
want
in
to
your
do that
situation,
because you take pride in what you do. But yes, with me, it's
someone spiraling to the ground and smashing and breaking
not only
up.
that, I mean, it's okay if they get sick. Yes, I have backup, so I'm covered there. But who wants to scramble to do that?
Especially in your line of work, you're looking for. I got to scramble to find an aerialist.
It's very, very difficult, and that part of it is stressful. Thank God that hasn't happened. I've never had that problem. And these artists are so, they have such a strong work ethic. They're very, very, very professional. If they're under the weather, they still work. I had an artist one time who, all of a sudden something went wrong in his shoulder and he still finished the routine.
Yeah.
That's what they're trained to do. So thank God I've never had that problem.
Now, before we leave, I just wanted to get an idea of, like we were talking about venues, and not necessarily convention centers or ballrooms, but outside. How does that work? I mean, is it kind of like the bungee, the bouncy house, or the bungee, that situation where they put the bungee guy out front?
Yeah, not exactly. We have what we call a freestanding aerial rig. Believe it or not, it can be assembled in 10 to 15 minutes. So safe. It can go up in different increments of 19 feet, 21 feet, 25 feet. There's different heights that it can go up. So what's wonderful is you can transport it on the plane, and as long as it's a level surface, grass, cement, doesn't make a difference to us, we can perform. So we can do outdoor theater. We've done a backyard party that was amazing around somebody's pool and had a private Cirque show there. So we have a freestanding unit that we can use, and we can perform silk acts, we can perform trapeze, we can perform any aerial act. So we're not just limited to arenas, convention centers, ballrooms, meeting spaces, that kind of thing. We can do it anywhere that it's a level playing surface.
So basically anywhere that's flat.
Anywhere that's flat and that has, even if there's an overhang, that's fine as long as it's high enough where our rig can go at least 19 feet high. We are happy to perform anywhere. It does get a little bit challenging. We did do a party one time outside in August in Houston.
103 degrees.
Yes, and that was not fun because the second the artist walked out, by the time they got to up the silk, they were already sweating.
Well, that's what I love about Houston. You don't actually have to sweat. It's already in the air. You just walk into it.
You just walk right into it. It's like walking into a sauna. And so that was a bit more challenging for them. But when they do silks and trapeze and things, they put a spray on their hand that's sticky.
Oh, like the football players used to do.
Exactly. And that's what they do so that it allows them to grab the hoop, the trapeze, the silk. So that's what they do to help them. But boy, when that humidity is out there, or if it's really, really, really windy, we've just got to be careful. Safety first with the artists. No show is worth it if it's not safe. So when you're doing outdoor events, it's fine. You just have to be very careful about humidity. You have to be very careful about wind. And of course, if it's just completely inclement weather, you better hope that there's an awning so that you can still have your event, because there's nothing worse than planning an event and it can't go off because of bad weather.
Yeah, it's all about prep work.
Exactly. Well, but men plan and God laughs. You can't help it if it's just all of a sudden you get a sun shower. And that's what's so hard. It can be sunny in the morning and all of a sudden the clouds roll in and there's your show and oh my God, what do I do now?
And in Houston at 4 o'clock every afternoon in the summertime.
Exactly.
It's like God flushed a toilet on the whole city.
Exactly.
Whoosh. And then it's gone in 3 minutes.
And that's the 5 minutes that you were supposed to have your show.
Right.
So it's a nail biter.
Well, if people wanted to hire you in your group and want to know more information, where can they find you?
They can go on our website, www.cirque, CIRQUE, imagination, all one word, .com. CirqueImagination.com.
Well, Judy, I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
I know you're busy, and I was surprised. I was waiting to see some people flying through the air as we spoke.
I'm so sorry. And no, I have not ever performed. I'm not a contortionist. I can't even do a cartwheel.
Well, I was going to say I might.
But I can get you spandex if you'd like.
Well, who doesn't want to see me in spandex?
Absolutely.
I think people just threw up in the microphone.
No, they would never do that.
I want to thank Judy for joining me, and I want to apologize for ending it on me in spandex. I mean, the mental picture alone is probably causing convulsions throughout the internet. Also, I'm always looking for guests. If you know of a great guest and you want them on the show, email me, Craig at speakercraigprice.com. I'd really appreciate it. The better guests we can get, the better the show is. Have a great day.